That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, I'm excited to bring y'all this video. This has been a video that's been requested by a couple people on Patreon, so it's about time that I make it. And the reason that we're looking this far ahead is just because you want to try to understand what you were trading for with the 2021 rookie picks if you were going out at this point in the offseason and trying to accumulate them. You can also use this information to decide, hey, maybe I want to trade away my 2020 first rookie pick and go get a 2020 rookie or another veteran player. And I think this is going to be a small but useful insight into the 2021 class. I'm by no means an expert. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I play in a ton of college fantasy football leagues or anything, but I have a decent understanding of the guys that are coming in to the NFL next year that are at the top of the class. So for this video, I'm going to focus in on the top rookies coming in from the wide receiver position in the 2021 NFL draft class. And before I get into the video, guys, if you have not joined the original Discord, the original Dynasty Discord chat, I know there are a lot of people who decided to go out there and make one after we did, but anyway, the original one, completely free. Go down there in the description of the video. And yeah, let's jump into this video. And first off, we are going to have to start by talking Jamar Chase, a player that most people should be familiar with by now. I mean, if you are a college football fan whatsoever, you know who Jamar Chase is. He is the wide receiver that just outplayed first round rookie pick Justin Jefferson last year, yet Jamar Chase was only a sophomore while Justin Jefferson was a junior. Nonetheless, let's zoom out a little bit and try to really grasp the Jamar Chase full prospect profile. He went to LSU as a 4-star prospect, so he could have pretty much gone to any school he wanted to. He ended up choosing between TCU, Florida, LSU, chose LSU, and clearly it worked out for him. And coming into college, these numbers are going to be a little bit harder to gauge than what we are going to get at the NFL Combine, so we should not put as much stock into them just because they're not official testing numbers, and we know that players' both body types and testing measurables change throughout their college career. But as an 18-year-old, Jamar Chase measured in at having a 107.46 SPARQ score, which is nothing that's going to jump off the page. But I say it all the time, guys, wide receivers, the athleticism does not matter too much. It's not like the running back position, where if we are looking at a running back whose athleticism is average to below average, he's off my board. I'm not really interested whatsoever. But wide receiver position, so much more goes into it. You actually just have to be talented. You have to understand the position. And we see that with production at the college level. And first, before we get to that production, let's look at Jamar Chase's body frame, which is exactly what you want to see. He's 6'1", 197 pounds, so by the time he gets to the NFL level, he's going to be the ideal, the perfect body type for a volume wide receiver, exactly what we want to see in today's NFL. Now, let's look at what he's been able to do at LSU so far. In 2018, he actually had 2.3 receptions a game and only 31 yards a game. Now, I know y'all are thinking, oh, that this is nothing special, but we have to keep in mind this was on a extremely low volume LSU passing offense, and Jamar Chase was 18 years old. So it's hard to expect him to go out there and do anything more, especially considering if you go look at Justin Jefferson's production this same year, which was not much better, despite them both playing in the exact same situations. Now, if we look at last season, where we know that LSU had pretty much historically the best college offense that we've ever seen, at least at the SEC level, we see him go out there and average 6 receptions a game, which is whatever, but you have to understand the efficiency he did those 6 receptions with. Almost 130 receiving yards a game and 20 total touchdowns. So Jamar Chase blows up and is one of the main reasons for LSU having a season that was so successful in 2019. Now, let's look at where his value currently is in the Dynasty community. This is not going to really be too relevant for everybody, just because I know a lot of y'all do not play in Dynasty leagues that include college players, but it kind of gives a good grasp of where we can maybe expect his value compared to these 2019 rookies. And I recently completed a Dynasty draft where you could draft college players and they would sit on your taxi squad until they got to the NFL level. Then you could start playing them. And he was included with the draft of all of the other NFL rookies. So we were able to see exactly where people are valuing Jamar Chase compared to these other 2020 rookies, such as CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Reagor, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs. You know the list. But in this recent draft, Jamar Chase actually went as the wide receiver 1. He went ahead of CeeDee Lamb, he went ahead of Jerry Jeudy, and ahead of everyone, which I can't necessarily get behind just because you're going to have to wait on this player for a year before you even see him on the NFL field. But this speaks to the volume of a prospect that Jamar Chase is. And if you look at 2021 NFL mock drafts, I'm seeing Jamar Chase going off at 4 overall, 5 overall. I mean, this is an Amari Cooper type prospect, so it's understandable for people to go out there. And if these two classes were combined, if the 2021 wide receivers were mixed in with the 2020 wide receivers, I believe that Jamar Chase would be the number 1 overall wide receiver in this class. So there's some talent at the top of the wide receiver position, but it does not only end with Jamar Chase. Let's go down to our next wide receiver, Rondell Moore. And Rondell Moore is similar to Jamar Chase in that he was also a 4-star prospect coming out. The only difference is Rondell Moore had elite level athleticism. He actually ran a 4.33, and he actually had a 42.7-inch vertical, which puts him in the 99th or 100 percentile SPARQ score, however you want to look at it. Rondell Moore is pretty much one of the best athletes in college football, coming in at 18 years old right away. The only thing that you hate to see on this Rondell Moore profile is he's 5'8", 174 pounds. I mean, that is just crazy to think about, a wide receiver that is going to be in the NFL being that small. And what's even more concerning is we know that these college numbers tend to be skewed a little bit. Maybe Rondell Moore actually comes into the NFL Combine and is 5'6", 5'7". Now, what are we thinking about Rondell Moore? That would be extremely concerning, but just because he has that huge red flag on his profile doesn't mean we should overlook everything that he is elite with at the NFL level in terms of how he checks out as a prospect. So let's look at his 2018 season. Keep in mind, everything I talk about in the next couple minutes is going to be Rondell Moore at 18 years old. Now, think about what you're doing at 18 years old. Personally, I was trying to bench 200 pounds, and Rondell Moore is out here catching 9 receptions a game, which was number 1 in the NCAA in terms of total receptions throughout the entire season. Keep in mind, this is at 18 years old. No, he's not number 1 in the NCAA out of true freshmen. He's just number 1 in the NCAA out of the entire player pool. He averages 113 total yards a game. He has 14 total touchdowns. And not only do we see him have this profile in the rushing game and the receiving game, but he's actually a great returner of the football as well. So this shows that Rondell Moore can win at every level of the field. Rondell Moore is pretty much the definition of being a dynamic playmaker, and I think this is something that we can expect to transition to the NFL level. And a couple fun facts about Rondell Moore: in 2018 he was a consensus All-American at 18 years old, and he actually won the Paul Hornung Award, and this is an award that generally does not necessarily go to offensive playmakers, and the only guys that we saw win this before Rondell Moore in 2018 were Tavon Austin, Odell Beckham Jr., Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley. Now, I know Tavon Austin didn't pan out really at the NFL level, but Odell, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, I mean, that is a list that you want to be a part of, and he did this, I mean, just with, it wasn't close. I mean, he was definitely the best playmaker in college football as a true freshman at 18 years old. Now he comes into 2019, he was everyone's wide receiver 1 on their boards, and he gets injured. So 2019, just toss it out the window. That's going to be concerning going into the NFL draft with his size and with his injury history, but we can't ignore the talent and the athleticism that he has. And I'm going to be going out there and I'm going to be getting him just because I'm willing to chase these outliers in today's NFL. Now that offensive coordinators and NFL head coaches are being more creative, using players with their strengths and not trying to pigeonhole them into their own specific offenses, I'm willing to go out there. I'm willing to take a risk on a player that does not necessarily profile as a traditional X wide receiver. So Rondell Moore, if we look at where he's currently being valued, and keep in mind this is a guy that was the wide receiver 1 in most college football circles a year ago. He just got drafted behind Jalen Reagor, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, and Justin Jefferson in that draft that I mentioned earlier where Jamar Chase went 1 overall. And while I may be avoiding Jamar Chase if that is going to be his price next season, Rondell Moore, I think this is entirely palatable, and I'm going out there and I'm willing to pay this price for a player that could be as dynamic as he is. Now, let's go to our last wide receiver that we are going to talk about. This is a guy that I don't really have too great of a grasp on how to value, but I know a lot of people are excited about him in dynasty circles, and this is Rashad Bateman. And the story with Bateman is just like Rondell Moore, just like Jamar Chase. He was also a 4-star prospect. He has more of a traditional build than the other two wide receivers. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. And this is really the story of Rashad Bateman. I mean, he's not like a Rondell Moore. He's not getting carries. He's going to be a traditional wide receiver. And he looks like he's so far been a fantastic traditional wide receiver in his true freshman season. He averaged almost 4 receptions a game, over 50 yards a game, and 6 total touchdowns. In 2019, he averaged about 4.5 receptions a game, and he really spiked his efficiency numbers up, which we love to see from that freshman to sophomore season jump. He actually went to averaging almost 100 yards a game, despite only increasing his receptions per game by 1, and he increases his total touchdowns to 11. Now, where he's currently being valued in this group of 2020 and 2021 wide receivers, so he just got drafted behind Jalen Reagor, CeeDee Lamb, and Jerry Jeudy. And this is a price where if he's going ahead of Rondell Moore, I think I would rather take Rondell Moore, even if his prototype isn't necessarily what the NFL has used historically. I think we are trending more towards the athletic, smaller guys at the NFL level. And if the offensive coordinators are creative and if they are able to draw up a scheme that's going to really highlight what players can do well instead of trying to fit them into their own system, I think we are going to see Rondell Moore be able to be significantly more successful at the NFL level than Rashad Bateman. Nonetheless, this 2021 wide receiver group is extremely talented, not only at the top, but there are a ton of guys throughout the entire class that I could go through and list. I mean, I'm telling you right now, this class is deep, just like the 2020 class. I'm not going to say it's as deep as the 2020 class yet, just because we know what those guys were drafted at. We have the exact data points where if we're projecting a year out, it's always a little more cloudy than if we're looking at what's ahead of us right now. So 2021, talented at the top, also deep. If you need a wide receiver, it's safe to go out there and trade for 2021 picks. And yeah, next time I'll get into the running backs of this class, and I believe it's going to be a different story when we look at that position. But that's all I got for y'all guys, and have a great day.